welcome one, welcome all. We're going to call this to order, and our invocation tonight will be by Pastor Rob Esperett from Virginia Beach Community Chapel. Welcome.
Let's bow our heads. We honor you, Almighty God and Creator. All wisdom and authority comes from you. We thank you for these men and women who are serving our great city. And we ask that you would empower them, not only with the authority, but with the wisdom that only comes from you. You give them humility, compassion, and integrity as they carry out their duties. Thank you for all of your grace upon us. We love you. We pray in Jesus' name. Amen.
Amen.
Pledge allegiance.
Allegiance to the flag of the United States of America, and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Okay, thank you. Okay, Madam Clerk, we have the roll call.
Yes, sir, all present.
Okay, could I have a motion for the certification of the closed session?
So moved.
Second.
Okay, we have it. Votes open.
By a vote of 11-0, you have certified the closed session to be in accordance with the motion to recess.
Okay, could I have a motion to approve the minutes of the informal and formal sessions of July 2nd, 2019? Do I have a motion?
So moved. Second.
Okay, vote is open.
Mr. Mayor, thank you.
There you go.
By a vote of 10-0 with Mr. Moss abstaining, you've approved the minutes as submitted.
I'm abstaining because I was out of town.
No, thank you very much.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
We are pleased to bring forward Andrew Houston, Chris Jones, Mark Evans, and John Herbert from the VB Strong Charity Car Show. Will you please come forward?
This is
Thank you and welcome.
Morning, good afternoon, actually. So in light of our recent tragedy, thought of different ways that we could come together as a community to support the families and the victims of the tragedy. So with that, I teamed with Mark Evans, standing in the middle, John Herbert, he's our event coordinator, and then Chris behind me, he's with the U.S. Flag Runners. Came together and we put this car show together, and we raised over $28,000 overall.
Wow.
So in light of that, we have decided that with each event, there's an event banner that comes with it. So this one, we decided to put the victims of the tragedy on it, and we are now donating it to the city as a memorabilia for what happened on that tragic day.
Oh, thank you, and what an honor. Any comments from my colleagues at all?
It's stunning. Thank you for doing this.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. And let me just say, the reaction that we've had from our community after this tragedy has been nothing but overwhelming and heartwarming. And this is just a sterling example of a community coming together to do the right thing for the right reason. On behalf of a grateful council and a grateful community, thank you and God bless you for what you've done and will continue to do. Really appreciate it. Thank you. Okay. At this point, Mr. Vice Mayor, do we have any consent agenda?
We do not, Mr. Mayor.
Okay. Moving forward, I want to remind everyone that the City Council speaker policy that allows certain representatives of groups to speak for 10 minutes applies only to planning items. As all other items on the agenda, each speaker will have speaking individually or on behalf of a group will have 3 minutes to speak. Also, when speakers are called on each item, the clerk will call for those individuals who have signed up to speak. After those who have signed up to speak have spoken, the chair will ask if there are any other persons who wish to speak on the item at hand. Those speakers will be allowed to speak and will be asked to give their name, address, and telephone number for the clerk of record. Okay, we're proceeding with ordinances number 1, ordinance to establish CIP 3-174, operations facility renovations, and appropriate $982,121 from the general fund balance and transfer $3,017,879 from the existing CIP projects, RE Consulate Municipal Center Facility Planning. Any speakers?
Yes, the first speaker is Conrad Stisventer, and then the next speaker will be Barbara Messner.
Welcome, Conrad.
Now, this is one of those opportunities, a teachable moment on budget fungibility, but it's still a significant one. The tragedy, of course, smashed a hole in city government, and it's needed to be repaired rapidly so we can get back to business as proper. $3 million will be moved specifically set aside to reset municipal offices, especially in buildings affected on May 31st. So go ahead, approve the plan, and thank you guys.
Thank you very much.
Barbara Messner.
Welcome.
Good evening, thank you. Mr. Moss, you've mentioned before about moving money around after the budgets are in place. We have over $2 billion, I can't tell if this is on loud enough. We have over $2 billion debt and outrageous fees, fines, taxes, flooding, traffic gridlock, and violent crime. No new debt for the new municipal center. No transfers of over $3 million from approved CIP projects for the new municipal center. Our schools and public safety should come first. Some schools are 30, 40, and 50 years old, and I'm still shocked in 2013 when I saw Princess Anne High School, how blighted that is. It's a shame for the kids to have to go there. I signed up on July 2nd to speak on the appointments, and I was told I couldn't speak. I still haven't found out why and if I'm going to be able to speak, today. But the council appoints themselves and individuals with major conflicts, and I think that we should have the names in advance, and that since it's on the public, it's publicly advertised, that we should be able to speak on it. Thank you.
That's all the speakers, sir.
Okay.
Mr. Mayor.
Do we have a motion?
Move approval.
Second.
Okay. Any discussion? Mr. Moss?
Only because I was mentioned, Ms. Messner is correct. I'm generally not in favor of reprogrammings. Most of those reprogrammings have been unnecessarily from the ending fund balance rather than from offsets. There is some money from the ending fund balance, in this case, about just under $1 million, if my memory serves me correctly. It's 900 and some, another decimal point, the decimal there. But the balance of the money actually is just the consolidation of municipal money that was allocated for municipal buildings. And I wasn't in favor of building the new municipal center, and if not for this tragic event that took place, I still wouldn't be. But you have to deal with the cards you're dealt at the time you're dealt them. And because of that, there's a necessity to build a new building in order to reconstitute government functions here on our campus. It's regrettable, but you have to deal with reality as it is. So I think my positions are consistent, but you have to adapt to emerging conditions. But thank you so much for giving me the opportunity to explain that.
Okay, thank you. Anybody else? Okay, vote is open.
Mr. Wood, may I have your vote? Thank you. By a vote of 11 to 0, you have approved the ordinance.
Okay, moving on to ordinance number 2, ordinance to amend City Code Section 7-59.1, riding wheeled devices or vehicles in the resort area. Any speakers?
Yes, Conrad Stisventer, and then the second speaker will be Reed Teschner.
Welcome.
Allowing use of motorized scooters in the trolley lanes will be a boon for the public. And I've already observed quite frequently, I work at the beach, how useful they are for riders, but I will admit they have other positive effects. There's decent, high-paying jobs in the area to run these businesses, and studies have shown that they reduce car rides, and that's needed in our area. Most scooter riders prefer bike lanes versus streets or sidewalks, and significant majorities of the riders prefer bike lanes versus sidewalks if they're available, and a trolley lane will act as such, allowing scooters on Atlantic restricted by lane with dedicated parking areas at beach access points would reduce people riding on the boardwalk's bicycle lane. Some companies, like Lime, will use GPS equipment to restrict inappropriate riding. They will provide helmets. They'll provide rider safety courses. In Norfolk, for example, in the past 2 weeks, they've had 27,000 scooter rides, which has substituted out about 9,000 car rides. The senior ops manager locally will commit to a full-time specialist on each shift from Memorial Day to Labor Day to patrol the ocean front and provide thorough and safe riding regulation, from Rudy to the Cavalier, even regulating the boardwalk to make sure there's no inappropriate behavior. Virginia Beach Council, businesses are opening their arms to work with you and provide riding services, so open yours too. Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Reed Teschner.
Welcome.
Thank you, Mayor Dyer and members of council. Just wanted to reiterate some of the conversations I've had with y'all previously, that we are dedicated to the safety of the people of Virginia Beach. We really appreciate the partnership that we've had here so far, and the progress that we've made, and the efforts that we've gone to ensure that we have, a continual safe operation here in the city. I'm really looking forward to the potential of being here for the long term, and we're committed to doing everything we can to ensure the safety of all the folks here and all the visitors that come to the beach every summer. So thanks again, and I appreciate and look forward to working with all of you.
Thank you very much.
That's all the speakers, sir.
Okay, do we have a motion?
So moved. What's the motion?
Okay,
I think we need to
Oh, it's
introduce
amendment.
modified it.
It's had
Okay.
been modified.
you want to read the? Okay. Okay, we have a add-on, I guess, as or a revised version with some sunset clause, okay?
Five, line 35.
935. Okay. Line 35, that the amendments made by this ordinance shall automatically sunset and expire on July 9th, 2020, which is 6 months.
January.
Oh, January, oh, my apologies, Benadryl, having trouble focusing, which is 6 months from the date of adoption, okay? So I guess that is,
If it's in order, Mr. Mayor, I move the adoption of the ordinance as
amended.
as amended.
And I'll second.
Mr. Rouse, may I have your vote?
Any discussion?
Mr. Tower, may I have your vote? Thank you. So by a vote of 10 to 1, you have approved the amended ordinance.
okay, thank you all very much. Now we have moving on to number 3, ordinance to approve a cooperative agreement between the city council and school board, Ray Legal Services, provided to the school board and school administration by the city attorney in fiscal year 2020.
The first speaker is Mrs. Marsh, and the second speaker will be John Kutsha.
Welcome, Rona.
Thank you, Mayor and council members. Good evening. I wish I were here to bring you some good news, but unfortunately, I'm very concerned about what's going on at the school board. I was there at the retreat today, and I was there yesterday. And I don't approve of putting through this arrangement immediately. I'd like to see it delayed. I've actually reached out to the city attorney, Mr. Stiles. I think there's a very cozy relationship, and I think the school board, whether they're doing it with legal advice or without legal advice, is going against their policies. And I specifically provided a handout that you should all have. It looks like this, but it's the committee appointments to a committee should take into consideration equitable distribution of committee assignments among school board members. And I don't think that's what happened, because what happened was a number of school board members were given 2 committees. Dan Edwards was given audit and policy review. Kim Melnick was given audit, that's a new designation, and legislative. Carolyn Rye was given audit and policy review. Trinace Riggs was given legislative and policy review, and Sharon Felton was given legislative. I call those the 5 favorites, and I don't know, maybe Ms. Wilson, if you're still the liaison, you could go back to them with some of this information. I'm not sure who exactly is a liaison for the school board, but they made an effort in what I consider bullying. That's the only word I can use. The 3 conservative members on the board who've been asking questions and trying to get information out. They're the ones who released the information about the excessive spending on the lobster meals, which you all may recall. That would be Ms. Manning, Ms. Hughes, and Ms. Weems. They've all not been given any committee, standing committee appointments. So it seems like we've doubled up on some people and totally ignored and disenfranchised. And these are people who were voted for by districts. So now you're taking 2 at-large members and you're putting them out. And this seems to me that it was a planned and contrived action, because there is a January 23rd email that Beverly Anderson sent to Daniel Edwards and CC'ing Aaron Spence, and it said, Dan, the last time we talked, you suggested that I even remove her from all committee assignments this July. I'm getting mixed signals from you. If I put her on a committee to plan a retreat, that would be like saying we trust her judgment on matters that affect the board. So we have a chair who is basically bullying the other members who were elected by citizens. It's not a pretty look. It's not how Virginia Beach wants to be known. And it seems very non-transparent to be including
Thank you, Rona,
the
very much.
superintendent and not the other school board members. And I'll leave a copy of this.
Thank you.
John
Just say
Kuchta?
something
Yeah,
real quick.
Rosemary?
I'm not liaison to the school board. I think the mayor and the vice mayor meet with the chairman and the vice chair on a regular basis.
Thank you, I'm sorry.
That's
Ms.
okay.
Wilson.
No, I just wanted you to know, and I'm not, it's
I
not,
didn't know who it
no, no.
was.
I was just clarifying it for you.
Yep. Welcome, sir.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor, city council members, city manager. I've long argued for closer legal cooperation between the Virginia Beach City Council and the Virginia Beach School Board. In fact, I stood on this spot on 12 May 2015, and I'll read from the city's official minutes to reveal what I discussed. Quote, he encouraged taking the funds for light rail and invest in hiring combat veterans to patrol soft targets. He can sense the threat to our city. He suggested instead of buying rail cars, why not protect the city and add more security in protecting the citizens and the current infrastructure. I tried again to get Will Sessom's attention when I wrote to him on 21 July 2015, just over 2 months from the last of 2 speeches to the Virginia Beach City Council that I made that spring, and just under 4 years from today. Yes, of course, I sent the letter return receipt requested. Please allow me to read passages from that letter. Quote, the mayor and city council now own the security issues facing this city, but you're choosing to ignore the threat to our community. First and foremost, we demand that you take the steps necessary to protect the most vulnerable among us, our children. The choice is yours and that of the city council. I hope that you reconsider your decision to buy light rail cars instead of protecting our citizens. I wrote Sessoms again on 1 October 2015 when he did not display the common decency to admit his error and take corrective action. The final sentence of my letter reads as follows, quote, you and city council must authorize heavily armed guards, especially at our schools. Did I get a response to that letter? Absolutely not. I decided to write Jim Wood a registered letter on 29 October 2015 about his participation at the Forum on gun policy at Lansdowne High School. Quoting from my letter, quote, "I can't understand why the mayor and the city council don't realize the tremendous liability that you are creating for the city and yourselves personally. Don't you realize that there will be no place on earth to hide if such an attack should take place after so many warnings have been given by respected authorities? It's time to give the schools enough money to provide armed security."
Thank you very much.
Copies for all you,
Thank you, sir.
and a copy for the record.
Thank you. Barbara Messner? We pass those around here.
It reminded me, I've spoken on public safety since the 90s when crime started, when Bobby Matheson was head of police benevolent, and the city's still like 85 officers short most of the time. They can only do so much if they don't have the manpower, and they're still waiting. I think only 100 officers have the body cams. Okay, and Mr. Moss, you said you weren't, prior to the shooting, that you weren't in favor of the new municipal center, but at the retreats, you even, you were for it. You even chimed in when Sessoms wasn't there anymore that you thought it was a great idea to have showers there. The law firms, there's major conflicts. We have 39 attorneys, and we don't need a new co-op with the city and the school board. I've been told for years, including by Mr. Moss, that it was a separate entity. We have 9,000 city employees. There's 12,000 for the school board. That's one of the largest employers in the state or the city. We already give schools $1 billion and extra $300,000 for the Something in the Water tourism event, not for classroom education. The buses were used illegally as, and the signs that say Virginia Beach Public Schools were not covered. I've sent y'all pictures. Okay, and this is a list of the outside law firms. You know, I've done FOIA requests for a couple years, since 2004. And Mr. Stiles, their city attorney, he came from Wilcox Savage in 1999, and this is the engagement letter that reply from Wilcox Savage. Okay, Hunt and Williams, they've been, we've hired them 14 times since 2004. Kaufman and Knowles, Mr. Towers' firm that he's retired from, 13 times since 2004. Williams Mullen, 9 times since 2004. That's the attorney for Goldkey. Troutman Sanders, 10 times since 2004. Pender Coward, 8 times since 2004. And the rate in 2004 was like $400 an hour, and that's the entire time that they work on public-private partnerships and lawsuits, like Kaufman and Knowles was hired.
Thank you, Barbara.
Against Dr. Bogano. You're welcome.
That's all the speakers, sir.
Okay, do we have a motion?
I'd like to move for approval and just briefly say that, it's okay, that this has been a partnership that's been going on for well over 20 years, and prior to the schools engaging Mr. Stiles' office and Mr. Lilly's prior to that, they were spending millions more on private, and so this saves everyone a whole lot of money, but yet everyone's separate. So this has been a very good deal for the taxpayers.
Okay, anyone else?
I have some discussion.
Yes.
I have previously voted for these, but I would say maybe it's cheaper, but I think it blurs a lot of accountability, and I'm going to talk about a couple examples so people will know of which I speak. No one can work and have two masters. And I've engaged the city attorney on a number of issues that involve the school board to question their legal authority to act. and to do certain things that he can do, whether it's procurement, whether it's how they dispense with election issues, it's how they dealt with the middle school problem with the land use. And it was like, well, it's a conflict of interest because I represent the school and I can't give you a legal opinion that would be adverse to what the schools are because he's serving two masters. So while it is cheaper, it does get in the way of individual council members getting a legal opinion about actions that they take. Now, some people may say the money's worth it. I have decided that there's a time to say you cannot have two masters. This is a military town. You don't have two commanders in chiefs. It might be less expensive if you had two, maybe. I don't know. We don't have two justice departments, one for the Congress, one for the White House. So there's a case where sometimes economy denies you accountability and denies you the ability to fully exercise your positional authority. So I am voting no on this issue for that reason. But to address the remarks, personally, you know, all of us have our views about the school board. They are a constitutional government. So in that sense, they are separate. Matter of fact, they're a superior governing body to us. We're a creature of the legislature. We can be dismissed tomorrow by the General Assembly. School boards cannot. So they are separate entities, and only the voters who now elect them have to hold them accountable. So you can't look to this body to provide you the redress of grievances that only the voters can provide. But we as a council can increase our ability to not have a conflict of interest and create ethical conflicts for the city attorney so that we can vigorously move forward without having to hire our own outside attorneys because of the conflict or hire it for them. And I think that those financial advantages of today do not outweigh our ability to hold ourselves accountable to the public for what we need to do under the charter.
Okay, thank you. Anyone else? Okay, vote's open.
By a vote of 10 to 1, you have approved the ordinance.
Okay, and the final item under ordinances is number 4, ordinance to accept and appropriate $916,066 from the state to the FY 2019-20 Department of Human Resources operating budget and authorize 12 new positions, Ray Jail and Reentry Service Coordination Pathway.
The first speaker is Conrad Schisventer, and the second speaker is Barbara Messner.
I have toured Virginia Beach Municipal Jail before, and while above averagely run, it could use improvements. And I understand the goal of this $900,000 is to reform jail and reentry services. The service delivery system requesting the $900,000 is seeking to reduce recidivism, enhance staff and inmate safety, improve behavioral health, provide a reasonable discharge service. Now, Virginia gave you the money, so Virginia Beach, use the money, especially wisely. Thank you.
Barbara Messner.
Again, this is item 4, correct?
Yes.
Accept and appropriate $916,000. That's nearly $1 million from the state. Northern he writes checks like, it's just ridiculous that he can just write checks. There's no accountability for the money. Most of the money comes for economic development, comes from the state. The school money, like all the projects, the public-private partnerships, PPEA. You know, the money for schools gets diverted to almost any building used by the public, including rec centers and these Taj Mahal schools. It's like, you know, some schools are in excellent shape and they have great security. We have dream academies for just a few people, but not everyone. That's not equal. Okay, and then and the school board, legal services provided to the school board. Again, you know, legal. I didn't even realize they have their own attorney, a female attorney. But now it looks like you're going to combine by the city attorney for 2020. I mean, I appreciate Mr. Moss's comments, but these issues have been brought up for years, maybe decades. And only one person to say something, it's outrageous. Thank you.
Thank you.
That's all the speakers, sir.
Okay, do we have a motion?
So moved.
Okay.
I have a question for the
Okay,
manager.
Mr. Moss?
Will these be treated like grant positions we used to do in the past? Because I noticed it said with this money, it wasn't clear in the write-up that the people getting these jobs know these jobs are contingent upon the renewal of the grant. But I know we used to have a classification for those types of employees. Will these employees be so classified? Or will they be brought on like we're assuming the money will continue and then the termination process kicks in our rules? How will they be classified for the purposes if the money's not renewed?
Mayor?
Go right ahead.
Yes, and if I may continue, I'd first like to begin by commending Sheriff Ken Stolley, who personally went to the General Assembly and has advocated for a number of years that the state needs to increase their commitment to mental health and the care and treatment of those who are in great need, and that he has brought to the attention not only of us in the leadership positions of jurisdictions, but also to the delegation that the jail should not be where mental health is being treated. And as such, he prevailed on our General Assembly to commit this almost $1 million to the city of Virginia Beach to conduct a pilot program. And I also wish to commend my Human Services Department, who have rolled up their sleeves to commit their support in doing in-jail screenings and assistance and health, as well as care coordination on those who are suffering from mental health issues. The commitment that Sheriff Stolley got from the state was that this would be a 3-year pilot, and we are expecting to get allocations on an annual basis for the following 2 years. And hopefully, we will change the dynamics by which our state views their requirements to support local jurisdictions to take on this serious social issue of providing adequate care to those who have mental illness. So I appreciate the opportunity to say that, but I thought the council should know how collaborative your staff and the sheriff's office have been on this issue.
But just to be clear, the continuation of employment is subject to the grant
Yes,
renewal.
sir, it is.
Thank you.
Okay, anyone else? Okay, vote's open.
By a vote of 11 to 0, you've approved the ordinance.
All right, we have one planning item. Okay, H&S Development Corp. LLC, Columbia Club of Virginia Beach for a conditional use permit, Ray Communications Tower at 1236 Prosperity Road, District 6, Beach.
The first speaker is Mr. Forehand.
Welcome.
Evening, Mayor, council members, staff, citizens. C.E. Forehand, representing H&S Development with an office at 2528 Horse Pasture Road in Virginia Beach. This new tower is to support the existing networks for current and future capacity. So it's a capacity issue. We need another tower in this area in order to enhance and expand coverage, like I said, for now and in the future. We do have a national anchor tenant that will be co-locating on the tower, and most likely by the time of construction, we may have 2 national tenants to co-locate on the tower. So basically, I'm here to answer any questions that the council or citizens may have. I will say that we are required by the FCC, and we have FAA approval on this tower currently. not just a recommendation, but an approval by the FAA. The FCC will require us to have a backup generator so that there'll be 24/7 uninterrupted power. This site will not go down in cases of emergency, natural or otherwise disasters. Will be up and running for the citizens in the community. It's a good site. It's a wooded site. The landlord is a charitable organization, and we think it's a real good fit within and for the community. And I'll be glad to answer any questions that council.
Okay, any questions, John?
Will the fuel supply for your backup generator be natural gas, on-site propane, or are you going to have diesel tanks?
Preferably natural gas, and if that's available, hopefully that is available.
Does the FCC regulations relative to backup gas require you to be able to back up against loss of pressure on natural gas lines in the event of a disaster that impacts pressure?
Well, there'll only be one fuel source, so if there's a problem with the natural gas, I mean, we have battery backup that'll last for 24 hours. If there's a problem with the natural gas, then, we may be able to run out another type of generator out there.
I'm just curious if they had one.
Those are things that are troubleshoot, we're troubleshooting. We have people that troubleshoot stuff like that all the time.
Thank you.
Okay, anybody else?
The next speaker is Barbara Messner.
Okay, I just wanted to correct, I didn't have the speech correct on, I mixed up the schools and,
Could you stick to this item, please, Ms. Messner?
okay. The gentleman mentioned that there are two potential major companies. How can you vote if you don't know who they are? It's my understanding that one of them's a 24/7 Wawa. Do you know how much crime we have at these 7-Elevens, especially places that are open 24 hours? This is one of the heaviest trafficked corridors. Prosperity, Oceana Boulevard, General Booth Boulevard, and Eaglewood across from the commissary. And, I've been asking Ms. Henley, Mr. Dyer, and Mr. Moss since 2014 to reopen the Red Wing neighborhood. I mean, traffic is a nightmare in case of an emergency. Okay, I believe we need to look at who might have conflicts, because this is KOA and Venture Realty. And I assume since it's Venture, Town Bank would finance some of it. And some people, may not want to vote if they have, any gas stocks, because that would be a conflict. Residents have limited time to contact council members and planning for the past month. So, as you know, I asked that the June 4th meeting be canceled because we couldn't get in touch with anybody. And then you canceled the next week. This should have been deferred. And it just seems like all the things that you should have been taking care of, all of a sudden, we have 12 people murdered at the workplace and 4 critically injured, and now you're going to build, do things that you should have been doing all along, and you're transferring money. I'm just not happy with the leadership or the fact that I can't use my time to correct something. Thank you.
Thank you.
No additional speakers, sir.
Okay, do we have a motion?
So moved.
Second.
Conversation? Anybody? Okay, vote's open.
By a vote of 11-0, you've adopted the application as submitted.
Okay, as we move on to appointments, our policy is that given that this involves personnel issues, we do not welcome public comment. So, Mr. Wood?
Thanks, Mr. Mayor. I nominate the following individuals for positions on boards and commissions: to the Bikeways and Trails Advisory Committee, James Rayner, and to the Development Authority, Neka Chazor.
Okay. Anybody else? Okay, vote's open. Okay, is there any
Fine.
unfinished business?
Sorry, by a vote of 11 to 0, you've
Oh,
appointed those.
sorry about
as-
that
as-
part, yeah.
As stated by Mr. Vice Mayor Wood.
Thank you. Okay, any unfinished business? Any new business? We are adjourned.